the shadow of the vast Carpathian forests, where each tree held centuries-old stories, lay the village of Vovchinets. It was a place where myths came to life, but the village's greatest mystery was its forester, Oleksiy. A man of modest height, with a thick beard and eyes burning with determination, his hands bore the scars of years working with wood and stone, yet his gaze always held tranquility. Oleksiy was known for his silence and ability to listen, able to sit for hours in the forest, absorbing the whispers of nature. He rarely shared his thoughts with others, but when he spoke, his words were significant and thoughtful. The villagers respected him for this, yet also felt a certain distance he maintained. One autumn night, as fog enveloped the forest like a white blanket, Oleksiy set out on his usual patrol, sensing an unusual tension in the air. He moved slowly, attentively listening to every rustle, every whisper of the forest. Hours passed without encountering a soul, only shadows dancing between the trees. Then he heard something, a low, muffled growl that resonated in his bones. Oleksiy stopped, his heart racing. He turned off his lantern to avoid attracting attention and listened closely. The growling grew louder, and he felt something large approaching. Hiding behind trees, he watched as dark silhouettes moved among the shadows. Then he saw it, a massive wolf, with fur darker than the night sky. Its eyes did not glow like in fairy tales, but were deep and impenetrable, like abysses. Oleksiy sensed that this creature was no ordinary beast. Its size and the calmness with which it moved spoke of an ancient power. The forester knew he should keep his distance, but he was also captivated by the creature. He decided to follow the wolf from afar, trying to understand its intentions. The night passed, but the encounter with the wolf left a feeling in Oleksiy's heart that he couldn't explain. It was not fear, but rather respect and curiosity for the unknown. He felt the wolf was not just a part of the forest, but also a part of his own soul that he had yet to discover. The story of the forester and the wolf quickly spread among neighboring villages, but Oleksiy never spoke of his encounter. He kept it as a personal secret, knowing some things are meant to be kept within, like mysteries never meant to be solved. That night, when Oleksiy returned to his home on the edge of the forest, he couldn't sleep. Thoughts of the wolf swirled in his head, like leaves in an autumn wind whirl. He decided he had to learn more about this mysterious creature, which seemed to be more than just a forest animal. The next day, Oleksiy went to old Mykola, the village's eldest resident, who knew many stories and legends. Mykola listened attentively as the forester recounted his encounter, then, sighing deeply, shared his wisdom. "What you saw might be the spirit of the forest," said Mykola, his voice calm and confident. "Wolves are special creatures. They're not just animals, they are part of nature itself. Perhaps this wolf is the last of its kind, a guardian of ancient secrets." Oleksiy listened, his heart beating in rhythm with Mykola's ancient words. He felt he had to do something to help this creature, to preserve its secret and wisdom. He spent many nights searching for the wolf, but the creature was cunning and cautious. It never appeared twice in the same place, and its tracks always disappeared among the dense forest cover. Oleksiy began to understand that the wolf did not want to be found, that its solitude was its choice, its way of protecting the secrets it carried. Over time, the forester accepted that his role was not to hunt the wolf, but to protect its presence as part of the forest, as part of the natural order of things. He became more attentive to changes in the forest, to the sounds and signs indicating the wolf's presence. And although Oleksiy never encountered the wolf again, he felt its presence in every rustle of leaves, in every quiet rustle of branches. Days flowed like water in a mountain river, and the village of Vovchinets continued its life as if nothing had happened. Oleksiy, the forester, still felt the presence of the wolf, but began to notice strange changes in the forest. The tracks he saw were not as usual, and the animals that once freely roamed the forest now seemed frightened and cautious. One morning, when the sun barely touched the treetops, Oleksiy found tracks leading to a cave on the edge of the forest. He decided to take a risk and follow them. In the cave, he found not only the wolf but also the answers he was seeking. The wolf was there, lying among old bones and hides, but it was injured. Alexei approached closer and saw that the wolf was not a mystical creature but a mutated beast. Its fur was mottled, and its eyes reflected not wisdom but cunning and cold calculation. Alexei realized that the wolf had used his fear and respect to remain unnoticed while it watched over the village. The wolf was a predator, but not an ordinary one. It was a survivor who had adapted to changes in a world that was becoming increasingly dangerous for its subspecies. Alexei felt a mix of disappointment and relief. He understood that the wolf was not the guardian of the forest, but also not its enemy. It was just an animal trying to survive. The forester decided he would not harm the wolf, but also not allow it to threaten the village. He left the wolf in the cave, placing nearby the meat of a deer he had previously hunted so that the wolf could heal. Alexei returned to the village, where he shared his discovery. He told them that the wolf was not a spirit of the forest, but neither a monster. It was a creature that needed understanding and respect, like any other living being. The village accepted this news with the wisdom characteristic of people living close to nature. They decided that the wolf could stay in the forest as long as it posed no threat. Alexei couldn't forget the look in the wolf's eyes when he left it in the cave. There was something more than just pain from wounds in the creature's eyes, it was fear. The forester knew that such a powerful creature could only fear something extraordinarily dangerous. He decided to conduct his own investigation. Alexei began gathering information, studying tracks and signs in the forest that could indicate the presence of another creature. He found strange prints that belonged neither to the wolf nor any known animal. They were large, with deep claws that left scratches on trees and stones. The nights became colder and the forest darker. Alexei felt something big was approaching. He began to hear strange sounds he couldn't explain, dull thuds resonating among the trees and rustling as if something large was making its way through the bushes. One night, when the moon was like a faded blotch in the sky, Alexei saw the creature, taller than the tallest tree, with long limbs ending in razor-sharp claws. Its skin was gray and rough, and its eyes were colorless, like fog. The forester understood that this was the creature that had wounded the wolf. It was not of this world, not from the science pages he had once read. It was something new, something unknown. He felt it was not just a predator, but also an explorer who had come from the depths of space. Alexei realized that the wolf was hiding not only from humans, but also from this creature. He decided he must do everything possible to protect his forest and village from this new threatening monster. He gathered the village hunters, sharing his discovery. They armed themselves and went into the forest, ready to face the unknown. But when they found the creature, it was already dead. The wolf Alexei had left in the cave had found the strength and courage to protect its home. The village breathed a sigh of relief, but Alexei knew this was just the beginning. He decided to study the forest more deeply to understand where this creature had come from and if there were others. Alexei stood on the threshold of his home, gazing into the night that enveloped Vovchinets. He felt something was wrong, that he had made a mistake. The wolf he considered a protector was just an ordinary beast, and the creature he had found dead could have a partner. His heart pounded in his chest as he decided to venture into the forest to find the truth. He walked slowly, each step echoing in the silence. The forest was dark, but Alexei was focused. He felt his fear was not only of the unknown, but also of the possibility that he might not be able to protect his village. Hours passed, but he found no traces. He began to doubt himself, wondering if this was a mistake. Was it just his own fear, spawning phantoms in the darkness? But then he saw them. The tracks were large and fresh. They led deeper into the forest, to a place where the moonlight couldn't penetrate. Alexei followed them, his breathing growing faster. He felt he was approaching something significant. And then he saw the creature standing among the trees. It was enormous, with long limbs ending in sharp claws. Its skin was dark, and its eyes glowed like coal. It resembled the one he had found dead, but this one was alive and breathing. Alexei hid behind a tree, watching the creature. He felt it was searching for something or someone. He realized the wolf had not hidden to heal its wounds, but to avoid this creature. It was a real threat, a being that could destroy all living things. When Alexei turned to the villagers for help, he was met with silent refusal. The fear of the unknown was too great, and no one wanted to risk their lives. All but one, the village's oldest hunter, Grandfather Petro. Grandfather Petro was a legend among hunters. He was tall, bent with age, with a thick gray beard that fell to his chest. His eyes were like two pieces of amber, holding the wisdom and knowledge of many years. He was quiet, but his words always carried weight, and when he spoke, everyone listened. "I will go with you, Alexei," said Grandfather Petro, his voice deep and calm. "The forest is our home, and if there is a threat, we must face it." They set out at night when the village was already asleep. On the way to the forest, they talked about their fears and doubts. "I'm afraid we may not be able to handle this creature." Alexei shared, his voice trembling. "Fear is a part of us, but we must not let it control us." Grandfather Petro replied, "We must gather all our courage and knowledge to protect what is dear to us." As they approached the forest, the darkness thickened, and the sounds of the night grew louder. They moved slowly, watching every rustle. And then they saw the creature standing in the clearing, its silhouette outlined against the night sky. It was enormous, with long limbs that seemed too long for any earthly creature. Its skin had a shade of dark steel, and its eyes were not visible under the thick darkness. Alexei and Petro hid behind the trees, observing the creature. It hadn't noticed them yet, but they felt its power. They knew a confrontation was inevitable, but on this night, they only watched, trying to understand what to do next. After spending a night in tense anticipation, Alexei and Petro gathered their thoughts and decided to act. They knew their chances were slim, but a desperate plan could give them an advantage. "We must use her strength against her," said Alexei, looking at the cliff towering above the river. "If we can lure her here, her weight and size will do the rest." Petro nodded, although his face expressed concern. "It will be dangerous if she understands our plan. Then we'll be in trouble," Alexei finished. "But we have no choice." They started their plan at dawn. Alexei distracted the creature by throwing stones and shouting to attract her attention. The creature roared in fury and began to chase him. Grandfather Petro waited near the cliff, ready for the last step of their plan. But as the creature approached, they realized she was smarter than they thought. She suddenly stopped, as if sensing the trap. She turned around and attacked Grandfather Petro, who couldn't react in time. He lost an arm in the struggle, but still held on. Alexei rushed to help, but the creature struck him down, and he fell wounded. They lay on the ground, powerless, as the creature approached closely. She seemed victorious, but there was no joy in her eyes, only cold calculation. Alexei and Petro knew their time might be limited. They had to decide what to do next, how to survive and protect the village that was their home. Sliding off the cliff into the river, Alexei and Petro saved their lives from the terrifying creature. The water was cold, but it gave them a chance to escape and hide from the monster's gaze. They made it to the shore, where they bandaged their wounds and tried to regain their strength. Throughout the day, they discussed a new plan. Grandfather Petro, despite losing an arm, was resolute. "I have a plan," he said, looking at Alexei with suspicion. "But I will only tell you about it when the time comes. For now, we need to focus on regaining our strength." They rested, each immersed in their thoughts. Fear and uncertainty hung in the air, but there was something else, a steadfast determination. As the sun began to set, they ventured back into the forest. The forest greeted them with darkness and invisible whispers. They walked, each step echoing in their hearts, ready to face the unknown. A cold stream of air made Alexei shiver, but not from the cold. It was from fear. He and Petro were moving through the forest, but the feeling that they were not alone was getting stronger. Suddenly, they realized the monster was not the object of their hunt. They were the prey. The monster pursued them stealthily, using its long limbs to move silently among the trees. They could only hear the light rustling of leaves as it moved, Every rustle, every crack of a branch made their hearts stop. Alexei and Petro ran, but their legs felt heavy, as if they were running through a swamp. Fear paralyzed their thoughts, but the instinct of self-preservation pushed them forward. When they found themselves with no escape, backs to a cliff, Petro confessed his last plan. He took dynamite from his backpack, which he always carried for fishing. "I'll do it, Alexei," he said, looking at the younger hunter with sadness in his eyes. "This is the only way. When it starts to eat me, I'll detonate the dynamite. It ends here." Alexei wanted to object, but the words stuck in his throat. He knew grandfather Petro was right, but the pain of losing a friend, a mentor, was unbearable. As the monster approached, Petro charged at it, distracting it from Alexei. The monster grabbed the old hunter, but before its teeth could pierce his flesh, Petro activated the dynamite. The explosion tore through the night silence, and with its light, both the monster and grandfather Petro were gone. Alexei stood alone. In the forest that had returned to silence, he felt a mix of relief and deep sadness. The loss of grandfather Petro was great, but he knew his sacrifice was not in vain. With the dawn came the realization that the horror was over. Alexei returned to the village, where he told of grandfather Petro's heroic act, and although the pain of loss remained, he knew that his homeland, Vovchinets, was now safe.